Hello, it's Christy from Christy Grows, and today we're talking 5 tips for getting your garden started this year. Now, before I start, we just need to head outside, so come on. It's an absolutely glorious winter day here in Cambridgeshire in January. I'm in the garden and I'm looking ahead to how I'm going to start my gardens for this new season, and I thought I'd ask some of my gardener friends for their tips as well to help you along with starting your first garden. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I have another gardener friend who is going to be giving us a bonus top tip. So we're going to begin with my first tip. Tip number 1. Know your last frost date. Now, knowing your first frost date is really important because, as you can see, blowing ice dragons here. We don't want our seedlings to succumb to the cold. So a lot of seeds will ask you to start to plant them 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost date. So you really need to understand when that is for you. And that's different for everyone around the world, even around the country. So first things first, look up when your first frost date is. Now over to Eli, who's going to tell you her top tip.
Hey, I'm Eli from In the Garden with Eli and Kate, and Christy has asked me to share one of my little tips for starting a new garden, and it is this. Before you go mad, buying lots of seeds, plants, or just getting things in the garden, this is the first thing you should do. It all starts with some paper and pen, or your computer, your phone, something to write on. That paper and pen, because you start off with lists. Now the first list is things you want to grow and why. So if you're growing for food, you might want to list all the things you like to eat, because you don't want to grow things you're not going to eat if you're growing food, because it's all that effort and time and compost, etc. If you're growing flowers and things, think about the things you like, make a list of that, because then you can narrow that list down. Because once you know what you like to grow or want to grow, you can start looking at your garden and saying, right, where are the sunny spots, the shady spots, the wet spots, the dry spots, and start matching your lists up to what will grow in those areas. So it all starts with lists and a pen and paper, and then the fun begins of actually creating your garden. I hope that was useful, guys, and thank you so much, Christy, for inviting me to come along and drop little tips on your channel. Now, it's freezing, so I'm going back indoors. See you guys.
Thanks, Eli, that was awesome. Now over to Robin, who's going to give you her top tip.
Hi, I'm Robin from Robin's Container Garden. When Christy asked me this week to give her a tip on how to start a garden from scratch, the very first thing I thought about was sunshine. You really need to know where the sun shines in your garden. Some plants need more sun than other plants, and you will find that information on the back of your seed packet. It tells you how much sun that something needs. If you don't have the seed packet and you're using something like from Premier Seeds Direct, they have their information on their website, so that's where you get that information from. And if you're using sage seeds like I did for my Berlotti beans this year, then you just look it up online if you don't have the information. So that is the most important thing for me, would be to know where your sun shines. Now, if you don't have that information, then your best bet is to plant in containers. You can move your containers around. I tend to find that some of my plants that I put outside, if I'm doubling up on containers, one will grow faster than the other one, and as soon as that one starts to shade the one behind, they get flipped. The tall one goes in the back, the short one goes in the front. If there's too much sun, I'll move it to a place that doesn't have as much sun. If there's not enough, I move it to a place where there is more sun. You can't do that if you plant it in the ground. So if you're a beginner gardener and you want to start a garden from scratch and you don't know where the sun is best in your garden, plant it in containers. So that's my top 2 tips.
Thanks, Robin, that was awesome. Now we're going to speak to Steve from Digwell Green Fingers. He's going to give us his top tip.
Right, Christy has asked me to give a tip on one thing I do starting a new garden, or a new allotment, or allotment garden, whichever. Knowing what I know now, I would say use your senses. And this is what I mean, I'll show you around a bit. Right, I know I'm growing in no dig beds, but the same applies as if you were growing on soil, like my plot neighbour there. So first thing you do, use your senses. Feel the soil. Is it gritty? Is it sticky like this? Is it sandy? Is it full of organic matter? Now this is obviously clay, so straight away I know that we are on clay soil. And as you can see, they've been putting lots of organic matter on to improve the clay. In fact, organic matter improves every type of soil. Sandy, silty, loamy, everything. So that's your first sense, feel. And my second sense, touch is kicking in now. I can feel the wind. It is blowing a hooligan. You can probably hear it. I'm here with my blooming t-shirt. I mean, even that magpie's having trouble flying up there, look. Right, so this was called Windway's Nursery. Now I'll just pan you around a bit. All the way up here, just up there, was Windway's Nursery, and it's called Windway's for a very good reason. It's windy. The River Severn is just over there by those black hills, and the wind howls up there, albeit sometimes a warm wind, but it howls up the valley. And we get it here just on the side of Stinchcombe Hill. So there we are again. So that's touch yet again, the wind. Use your eyes, look around and see what you can see. Now this person here, oh that's me, is growing blueberries in pots. Now why is he growing blueberries in pots? Perhaps he's got an alkali soil, not an acidic soil. And that is true, we're on alkali clay, so my blueberries are in pots. Other clues are in a garden, for example. I don't think there'd be anything around here like that. No. Are people growing azaleas, rhododendrons? They all need acidic soil. If they are, there's a good chance that that they are on acid soil. Use your eyes again. Look at the sun. All right, we can't see much sun today. It's there somewhere. So I know that that up there is south. And the sun rises there and it sets over there somewhere. So again, we've used our eyes. We know that that is south. And that obviously puts over there north. Ask around, talk to people. Ask plot holders, ask plot neighbours, ask garden neighbours what they're growing. What's the best Brussels? What sort of strawberries is that guy there growing? They obviously grow well because there are loads of them. No point growing one that won't grow on your soil. What sort of raspberries has he got there? Things like that. Use your mouth, use your power of speech and just ask questions. What time should you start planting this? What time should you start planting that? What cauliflowers have you got in there? They're obviously growing well and they've survived all that snow and all that minus 10, minus 13. What are you growing there? Just ask questions. Purple sprouting. That's a nice one. This is claret. Again, that survived the cold. So don't be afraid to ask. Any gardener worth his salt will be only too happy to share their knowledge with you. Okay, hope that's helped. And I am freezing my off now, so I'm going to go back in the car.
Thanks, Steve. That's brilliant advice. Now let's head over to Steve at Green Side Up for his top tip.
Hello everyone, and a big thank you to Christy for allowing me to come onto her channel to waffle along at you a little bit. And I want to talk to you about buying seeds. There's a cost of living crisis on now, we all know that, and times are hard and bills are increased, And you might want to start gardening, you might want to start growing your own food. There's nothing better for you. You're getting a little bit of gentle exercise and you're growing your own fresh produce free of chemicals in your own back garden or wherever you have a growing space. Now with seeds, I've got one of my one of my seed boxes here. I warn you now, it does become an addiction. And there are places you can go to. Yeah, you can go out to places like Wilko's in the UK and they've got a cheap seed range, which is great. And there's one site I found the other day called Budget Seeds, and most of their seeds are under £1 a packet, and you get a much smaller amount of seeds in there, so they're ideal for a starter gardener. Nice cheap seed packets with just the amount of seeds that you want, not stupid amounts. But there are many seed ranges out there where the seeds can be sort of £2 or £3 a go, and that's when it starts to get expensive and you're not really, I think, saving any great deal of money. But the seed company I use is Premier Seeds Direct, and I'll show you why. I'll give you an example why. If I pick, what have we got on here? Brassicas and beetroots. Right, in this seed packet, beetroot, this one here, 650 seeds. Who needs 650 beetroots? Turnips, 4,000 seeds. Florence fennel, 2,400 seeds. Swede, 2,500 seeds. And what's this last one? Radish, 2,500 seeds. Now, these were all £1 a packet, so those seeds alone were just a £5. But if you were to buy those and club together with a group of friends, and maybe a group of like-minded thinking neighbours or somebody in your village, one of your village groups, if you all got together and bought those seeds, let's say 10 if you did, you would all have 5 varieties of seeds for 50p. And that's my point, is to buy these seeds from Premier Seeds Direct because they're so cheap. There's so many of them, and then you can share them, and your seed cost will go down. To buy a good year's amount of seeds for growing the majority of crops that you might want to grow in a vegetable garden might cost you 20 or 30 quid. But if you do it this way, you're going to keep that cost down all the way down to a £5, and that 20 quid that you save is vital. And another quick top tip, I don't want to overstay my welcome here, sorry Christy. This is a potato from home, and you get seed potatoes that you grow, and it's got a little thing growing here. They call these chits, and that's where your potato plant will grow from. Most gardeners will know that. But it's got several across the potatoes. If you simply cut that potato up, that's now one seed potato in there, and this one has got a couple on there. So from your bag of seed potatoes, you've now got 3 seed potatoes, just simply by making sure that each piece has a little growing point on. And I could cut that up further into about 4 or 5 pieces, so do bear that in mind. It's just a quick money saving option, especially during this cost of living crisis, and to grow your own nutritious food at home. So get after it and go and dig a hole and put a plant in it, green side up.
Thanks, Steve, that's brilliant advice. Now let's head over to our last Steve at Steve's Seaside Allotment.
So Christy asked me to do a quick video about that for part of her series about growing food on the cheap, and as is always the case, you know, I don't really like to follow the herd, and my perspective is always to try and make best use of your resources rather than just to do things cheap. So I thought I'd show you one of the ways in which I try and make my beds earn their keep. And so I'll take you through one sample bed and the kind of successions that I drive through that bed. So here's an example of a spinach bed that I planted up in October, and I've already harvested from in between the spinach plants a whole load of salad onions, you know, about 1,000 salad onions probably. And if you think of the value of salad onions, that is quite considerable. So I'm getting to the point where I'll soon have too much spinach, so I'll be harvesting every other spinach plant, and in its place I'll pop in some parsnip seeds. I'll chit those seeds on kitchen roll so that they're pre-germinated and get off to a really good start, because I want to give them the advantage of this cold frame early on in their life, because I want to harvest them quickly. So once those parsnips are growing, I'll harvest every other remaining spinach plants, and in their place, so here, here and here, I will be planting onion sets. And I like to do onion sets because they're kind of just a little bit quicker to get off the mark, and they'll be really nicely established before the parsnips get in their way. So as this bed grows, I'll basically have little parsnips and big onions, and then eventually the parsnips will kind of overwhelm the onions just about the point at which I want to harvest the onions. So I'll take the onions out in August, and then I'll start harvesting the parsnips in August, because I started them nice and early in March. So the parsnips will all be harvested by October, and then into this bed will go lettuce, interplanted with salad onions. And that's kind of one of the examples of how I get loads of successions of relatively low value crops out of the same space. And ideally I'll be harvesting about £40 worth of food from every square metre, which makes it really easy to justify the investment in something like a cold frame, because basically I pay it off in about 6 months.
Thanks, Steve. That really is useful advice. Now, I don't know about you, but it's -5 here and I've kind of had my limit, so I'm going in for a cup of tea now. But before I do want to say a really big thank you to all the gardeners who took the time to share their knowledge with us so that we could get off to the best start of our gardens this year. It's really, really been helpful, and I'm really grateful. Now, if you guys have got any tips, then make sure you leave them in the comments below. I know we've got a massive amount of knowledge in our community as gardeners, so let's share it with each other, especially for new gardeners. We want everyone to get off to the best start this season. Now, with that said, I'm off. It's tea time. As you can see my breath trailing. Bye bye for now. Happy gardening, everyone.